Good afternoon. We're back. I'm going to say we're going to show this one second because I said it in the video that we're back. So you guys saw Anna with me for her first History Loves Company Tombstone Tourism Tour 2022 at Mount Beulah, which is actually just down the road, 2 miles?
Not very far.
2 miles from where we're at right now. Oh, do you mind actually grabbing my copy of the first 100 years?
Yep, I will.
So I can read the directions on where we're at. Now, we actually today started at the cemetery because I literally live in the neighborhood next door. Okay? I wasn't going to drive to work and then drive right back home. It wasn't going to happen like that. But I was very rude not to introduce myself. My name is Krista McKay. I'm the collections manager at the Marietta History Center, and my partner in crime, who is heading back this way, is Anna Monroe, museum assistant at the Marietta History Center. She also helps with our volunteers and educational programming. I was rude and didn't introduce myself.
Uh-oh.
That was wrong. So if you will hold up that copy of First 100 Years, and then you will notice I have placed a Post-it note on where the book needs to be opened. We are following Sarah Temple's journey through the, as she says, white cemeteries through Cobb County. And today we are actually at Dawson Cemetery, and as she calls it, the Dawson Burying Ground.
Just kind of interesting. Yeah, that's her.
She uses cemetery for some, but burying ground for others.
I wonder if there's a distinction.
I think there is a distinction, and I'll explain it in a second.
See, Krista knows.
After you read the directions,
okay.
If we were leaving from the Marietta Square, like she did, this is how it goes.
Okay. Dawson Burying Ground on Shallowford Road, 1.1 mile from Canton Road. Shallowford Road turns off Canton Road, 11.3 miles from Marietta.
These directions are absolutely spot on.
I
spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, I should know it. I drive past this cemetery every single day. I know exactly what I could get from work to here following those directions. But going back to the burying ground, I believe it's called a burying ground because you'll see on the previous page there's another burying ground.
Fowler Burying Ground.
Yep, which we have not gone to yet.
And then you got, I was going to say Bearmore Family Burying Ground.
Yes, but what are those two?
And then Noonday Cemetery. Old Noonday Cemetery and New Noonday Cemetery.
Noonday are churches.
I figured it out. Yep.
Burying grounds. Dawson is a familial burying ground. There is no church tied to this. I am not 100% certain, but this might be the largest family burying ground in Cobb County. Amy and I have tried to go to a couple others, but they're locked. So we don't trespass because we didn't have permission. We will get permission to
always ask permission.
Always ask first.
Well, and I was going to ask, is in Cobb County, I mean, obviously we read a few of the burying grounds, but is it fairly common for a cemetery to not be associated with a religious organization in Cobb County? Or is this kind of more of the...
There's the entrance. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I would guess majority are either churches or municipal or privately owned. Like, obviously this has an association, but it's the family members are still involved in this one. This is an active burying ground. There are burial. The most recent one I saw was 2021.
Yeah,
I haven't seen one for this year. But
I hadn't either. I had to look around.
No, but yeah, it's majority of family burying grounds are on family property. And this would have been some family's property at one point. Probably the Dawsons. I'm sure it's the Dawsons because that's what the paperwork told me. But if you guys ever have driven on Shallowford Road, Nicholson Elementary is right here. And then McCleskey Middle is like straight up the road in front, which is Mabry's. But you guys might remember, right where the entrance is, and that's my car, there used to be these two big red brick like entrance walls. There was no gate, but entrance walls. And I want to say
they were fairly substantial.
They were.
It wasn't like a tiny half wall. These were very tall. Yeah.
And I remember them as a kid when I moved here in like 1990. So they're not here now. And I want to say it was like 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds
somebody
right.
hit one of them and destroyed it. I don't know what kind of vehicle it was, but it destroyed one of the walls. And it stood like a wreck for quite a while, at least a year, I think. And then they just decided to take them both down because I don't know if they're planning on rebuilding, but if they are, I don't know why they would have put grass down, seeded.
Yeah, they seeded it. And it looks nice. I mean, it looks nice.
It's better than the broken brick.
Yeah.
But again, it's hard to maintain that. So this one is regular. This must be a perpetual care because it's often mowed. And like I said, they do have an association that takes care of it.
And it has the driveway that circles around.
Circles around. I love that. It's my favorite. It's a great cemetery to walk through. I've walked through it numerous times. Like I said, my neighborhood's right there. So this little article that I found right here in 1963, and actually before I tell you that, Anna, did you know that stars are enabled on this video?
What?
You can support us.
Always support us.
With stars.
Click that little button in the corner.
Stars help provide for this program and other programs we do. And if you really, really like this program, that's because it's Best in Cobb. We won Best Virtual Event
for 2022.
And if we don't win it for this year, I'm going to blame you.
It's going to be my fault since I'm now involved in the videos. Good, no pressure.
But if we win something else like Best Museum, then maybe it was you. I'll take whatever, honestly. So this cemetery article, Dawson, was the one. And also, if we can go back in time and get people to do a write-up about every cemetery in Cobb County like this, I would greatly appreciate it. Get it to work on a time machine for me.
I know.
Because this literally gave me all the historical information I needed to start. So it was a small, now see it says the small family, and small's capitalized.
So that has to be the name of the family.
But I don't think it is. There's no smalls in here.
That's true. There are no.
I think it's supposed to be the small family, like it was small in size, which it's kind of big. Which covers 2 acres of land. The original land donation was made by Mr. and Mrs. William Dawson, and whose son was buried there prior to the Civil War, and then another son had the deed recorded after his parents were buried in the cemetery in the 1870s. And then additional land had been given by W.P. Bryan, T.H. McCleskey, and if you read and continue to read about it, it says that there actually were 2 Civil War soldiers originally buried in the cemetery and then later moved. Several children of the parents who worked on the Dawson farm are also buried here. And then otherwise, grave sites have been limited to the members of the Dawson, McCleskey, York, White, Bryan, Dobbs, Bishop, and Watson families. So you have to be connected to them. Which is why when I usually write this stuff down, handwrite it because I remember things better that way. And I started with a Dawson and then did the trees with the people and like check. Every single one was a check. They're all here. And I'm like, then the ones that aren't, I'm like, they were either the black sheep or maybe they are, but they don't have a stone because sometimes that happens, especially early on. But yeah, so thank you to this article in 1963 for providing me all this information. But we're going to show some pictures of some people that are buried here that are on Find a Grave or whatever, but we're not going to stop at all of these. Because again, Find a Grave has about 215 people listed. And I was telling you earlier that Sarah's book lists like 43. And she probably did it somewhere around 1930. Yes. Early 31 maybe. But Franklin Garrett, who did the same thing, which we've talked about in previous videos, went around 1941.
So about a decade.
Only did 34. But some of his people that he lists died after she came. So like there's this inconsistency in
how they counted.
Yeah, how they read it.
Yeah.
Because they wrote it, I made little I wrote in my book. I made little check marks.
Well, it's interesting because you wonder, okay, well, maybe did she inadvertently, I hadn't thought about this, counted the family stone? Like the main Dawson stone, and then also all those buried around it, and did that for each of the families buried here?
Hers are kind of in familial.
Maybe.
Yeah, and Garrett writes alphabetically, which I appreciate greatly. But hers are kind of, well, yeah, like there's one person that we'll talk about who was buried here, but she wouldn't have known it because the stone wasn't put until after she came through. It's our World War I vet that we'll talk about later.
Oh, yes.
But do you want to show some pictures of people so everybody can see?
Okay, so I'm just going to point out to those that are really on trend right now. Your style was from long ago. So this is Miss Sarah Emmeline Dawson.
Who married O'Brien.
Married O'Brien.
They'll see it better than you, and it's not backwards to them.
It's not backwards.
I say it every time, it's not backwards to them.
But she's got that middle part happening, y'all. That middle part's not for everyone. I'm just letting you know.
Hey, I think she looks great.
I'm not saying she doesn't. I'm just saying it's not for me. Sorry, I'm not. I'm not on trend. I'm not on trend at all. Well, it's hard to see the Anna McCluskey.
Well, I want to show this one just because when we talk about family, this is fine to grave. Look at all the peoples. Look at all the peoples. And she is a McCluskey who married a York. And there's Westmorelands, which I could see, and Westbrooks I can see here. Allens, Durhams, Dobbs. I mean, they're all interconnected.
Was she did she marry George Washington York? Yes?
No.
Oh, William.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. Hold on.
How are they related?
I bet.
This is
I
George.
bet. But George, he needed a back.
He has a full story, which is actually, I think, pretty interesting.
This is her father-in-law.
That's her father-in-law.
This is Anna's father-in-law, and you could tell. I mean,
it's not this Anna. That Anna.
It could be. No, it's not. Who else do you?
Because he had the one. He's the one that was hit by the train.
He was.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
We'll try and get we'll do that one in
the Fowler
one,
and then
we're gonna go over there. You guys will see it, but you guys, Otis Brumby, Junior.
Got, let's see, Louisa Dawson York, which I kind of like her top picture. That stance. She's just very she's a lady. She's a strong lady. She looks like she's owning
are those all her kids? That's why.
That's all her children.
Hold on, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. 13. She's got to be a strong woman. See?
13.
You got to be strong. Look at that. Got to be strong when you got 13 children.
Okay, let's see.
All of whom actually lived to
adulthood
or close to it.
Oh, Emmeline.
One died at 15. That was the youngest. 1866 to 1881. But otherwise, yeah, those
are pretty impressive.
That's
stats.
Impressive. Yeah.
Okay, this one's siblings of Elizabeth Bryan White, and I'm kind of digging the hats that they have. Hold on, let's see. They have going on. I like it. I like her hat. Very stylish. Very nice. Very nice.
And then this one, actually, when I was able to start research on this one I actually had papers from the Bryan family, copies. So I was able to start with those. And we're not going to go over there, but they are over in this back corner. We'll probably mention them, but we're not going to go over to those plots. And then we are going to head over right now towards the Fowlers really quick. That name might be familiar to everybody. Dr. Ralph Fowler is here, and so is his wife, Irma. We're going to just show you those plots. I'm not going to tell you the whole story because we've done that story before with Irma, but I do want to show you where she's at. So you guys we'll go over there and we'll see it. Here's a shot, guys, just before we get started with more detail, what it looks like from front to back. It is in neat little rows. If you stand at the front or the back, you could see them much neater. There's a good overview of this cemetery. And yes, it does get warm in the sun. I can attest to that. So I'm actually just here by myself because Anna is looking at something else right now. But really quick, this is the plot for the Fowlers. You have Dr. Ralph Fowler Jr., Dr. Ralph Fowler, and then Irma Dobbs Fowler, who died October 31st, 1963. And then there's Brumbies, which we'll talk about in a second. So Irma Dobbs Fowler was actually one of the people that died in the Atherton explosion on Halloween night, 1963. If you'd like to know more about that story, you can go to our, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's on YouTube. But if you're watching it through our Facebook, it's on our YouTube channel, where Amy and I discuss the Atherton explosion in more detail. But yes, she had died in the Atherton explosion, Halloween night, 1963. Okay, so we're actually towards the back. We're like at the edge where the roadway is.
And see, it goes all the way around.
It's a nice little loop. I like cemeteries that provide a loop for me. Milford Baptist, which you did not go to, had a nice loop around it.
Makes it easier to access some of the stones at the back, and you're not having to tromp through.
Yeah, New Smyrna had one too, which I really like. But we are in the back, and we're actually right by the stone of family of Otis A. Brumby. And what does it say at the bottom there?
Founder of Cobb County Times, 1916.
Yeah, and then you've got 4 footstones, which look like headstones.
But they're footstones.
Because they're like pointed the opposite.
We're trying to figure it out.
We're trying to figure it out because like there's rows, right? Like you saw it, but let me show you guys again. Hold on, because like, I can't explain it. There's rows, and it's like the bigger stones are the family stones, and then the smaller flat stones are individuals' names.
Yeah.
But they're not all pointing in the right direction. Now, the Brumbies are, they had their stuff together when they put the stones in. But this is the plot for Otis Sr. and Otis Jr.
Yeah.
And most people, Otis Jr., I mean, I think it was 2009 is what the stone says. You can go check in a minute, I'm sure.
I was like, yeah,
I'm going to go with that.
That sounds like the right
So a lot
frame.
of people, if you ever read the Marietta Daily Journal, or you knew about the Cobb County Times, that was the Brumby family.
I mean, it's one of the most recognizable names, I would say, in Marietta.
Yes.
Brumby, the Brumby family.
So Otis Brumby Sr. Died in July of 1953 at the age of 64. He had been the former president of the Georgia Press Association. He'd actually lived in Florida first and had done some work for papers there before moving here before World War I, starting the paper in 1916. But it's very interesting that when he died in an Atlanta hospital where he had been confined for 2 weeks, friends visited him and he said he was feeling better, and then you know what happens.
They have that resurgence.
Something, yes, exactly. Originally he lived, as I said, in Pass-a-Grille, Florida. That's a cool name.
I don't know where that is. Pass-a-Grille, Florida.
I don't know where it is either.
If you know.
Yeah, if you know, let me know. So, like he handled Brumby's Times, the Cobb County Times, scored an unprecedented grand slam in 1939 by winning all 4 National Editorial Association's awards. His paper also won the NEA Award for General Excellency in 1946. Is that National Endowment for the Humanities or Arts? Is that the same thing?
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't look that one up, but
we'll have to.
I will.
Because that's really interesting.
And then the Times is believed to have won more Georgia Press Association awards than any other weekly in the state. And then the Times and the Daily Journal merged in October of 1951. So he only was heading the merged papers for like a year and a half.
Not very long.
And then when he died, his wife and son took over. So that, what I think is really cool is, if you read all of it, I mean, there's
a long article.
There's multiple pages to his article. What was very interesting is when he died, Otis Jr. was actually at National Boy Scout Jamboree in California.
Aww.
And it said he would not attend his father's funeral because Otis Sr. clearly requested that before he left that his trip not be interrupted in the event of his death. Like, he knew something.
Oh, he knew it.
Yeah.
You know, you want your kid, and I can get it. As a parent, like, you want your kids to have this experience and not be
And I mean, he's
negatively affected by.
He was literally across the country. It wasn't
Yes.
like he was in North Carolina or somewhere closer.
And it wasn't an easy trek at that time either.
Nope. But yeah,
and an expensive one too.
It is. Oh yeah.
That would have been an expensive trip too.
We actually do. We can hopefully post them. But I actually do have Christmas cards of Otis Jr. and his sister when they were little. Like, so Merry Christmas from Otis and BB. I'm like, they're really cute. I think one of them, they're like in little uniforms and they're saluting. I'm like,
that's adorable.
It's adorable. It is.
I mean, who doesn't like seeing like pictures of kids?
So when we said I know, totally. But when we said in the beginning, the families, I didn't list Brumby.
Yeah.
But
I think that's probably going to be a big question. Why in the world is a Brumby at the Dawson Cemetery so far from Marietta?
Because Mrs. Brumby, Mrs. Otis Brumby Sr., was a Dobbs. So Dobbs can be buried here. And that's why we have Brumbies. And on the other side, let me take you guys around so you can see it. The other side of this stone,
which y'all should notice the beautiful lettering on this.
I'll try and get closer. So
it's just a beautiful lettering.
It's a really cool. Whoa! Sorry, as I kick you guys. My bad. Family of Clyde D. Dobbs. So yeah, like, it's a cool font.
It is.
That's the terminology we want. Font.
Yes, font.
But there's more Dobbs over here, and if you're wondering, is it the same Dobbs? The Dobbs are very prolific.
They're prolific.
There's
family.
a lot of kids always. So yes, they do.
Do I need to hold
circle back? If you'll just hold that for a second. If they do circle back to the ones that are buried in the Marietta City Cemetery. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk over to a bishop and talk about him for a little bit, and then we're going to head over to a World War I veteran that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so we just finished with the Brumbies. Very quick synopsis on that. This is going to be another quick one too with the bishops. Now, a lot of people know Al Bishop, as in the softball complex over by the fairgrounds. This is actually Al Bishop's aunt and uncle. Yeah, that's that. As my stuff falls, you guys can't see any of this, and I'm like talking like you can.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Things are happening.
So right here, there we go. That's fine. William A. Bishop, and then his wife Ina Dawson. So this is where we start to see Dawsons again. Lots and lots of Dawsons, because again, that's what this cemetery is called. You can see some other things, other trees or graves there.
It's a nice mixture of older and newer stones.
You got a mix of marble and granite. But so the reason I wanted to bring up Al Bishop is that, or not Al, excuse me, William Bishop, is because that family does have a lot of connections back to the square. So William A. Bishop was a bailiff for Marietta since 1912, died in 1940. Former police chief and sheriff's bailiff closed a colorful political career this morning when death struck him at his home on Lawrence Street. Okay, we're the 12 miles away? So where he lived and where he's buried are not very close. I'll put that in. But he was a native of Marietta, a native of Cobb County, and moved to Marietta in 1891 to accept a post in the sheriff's office with his brother, A.A. Bishop. So it doesn't sound like there was any sort of nepotism.
I know, right?
I don't think so. But
that's the way those things
he
work
was
out.
married to the former Miss Ina Dawson, who survived him. They were married for over 50 years.
Wow.
And that's what it says here, yeah.
Can you imagine? That's a long time.
That is a long time.
That's an incredible achievement.
It
50
says,
years.
He was a colorful and yet retiring sort of politician. That's what I want to be remembered as
sort.
Colorful, but yet retiring. He sounds like an introvert to me.
I was like, I don't know where to go with that. It sounds like a lot happened and was interesting, but yet not. Somehow nothing happened and was just very calm.
I know. Well, the problem with the article is there's no picture of him, but there's like a picture of this lady there that just creeps me out every time. I don't know who she is. It just says...
a very dour, just looking... Unhappy is the first word. Unhappy.
It's not a good story. It doesn't relate to Marietta, so I'm not going to mention it.
Okay.
You can read that for yourself.
Oh, Lord bless. No, we're not going to read that.
We're not going to read that one.
But you can go look up the article and find it yourself.
Yes. You want to tell them the date on that?
Oh. It's cut off. Oh, wait, it's at the top.
It's at the top.
1940, March 27th.
March 27th. All right, we're going to...
Marietta Daily Journal.
Marietta
Look it up. They're all there.
Pre-Otis Brumby owning it.
Ah.
Because remember, they don't merge until 1951.
Yeah.
See, I remembered. You obviously didn't.
I did not.
That long ago when I said that. All right, we're going to walk over, and I'm actually just going to keep the camera rolling because I want to talk... Okay, before we get to this, I'm going to preface, I do actually have the contact information for this cemetery. I do want to try and get out here and clean, but I have to get permission first. Remember, I always have to have permission. These aren't my family members, although, you know, I research them like they are. I don't have the right to just come and clean. I have to get permission, or the same as Anna is doing with her church cemetery. She's asked permission first. So we're gonna walk over slow and steady. Now I will say the ground is a little uneven, but I wouldn't say it slopes a lot except back towards the front. So all right, we're gonna turn around real quick. All right, see, there you go, get a view. Go ahead and turn that off.
You're lucky that you're kind of getting a good view of the cemetery from all angles. Okay.
I had my finger on a button and I was afraid I...
You know what I'm going to go do is pick up your water bottle.
Oh, thank you. She doesn't understand that, like, I pick it up later afterwards. I don't leave a mess, everybody. I don't leave a mess. Okay, so this stone that I'm just showing you, right there in the center, is a World War I vet. So if I get permission to clean out here, he's going to be the absolute first that I clean. And then actually right next to him, I want to clean this one too.
Which
right
is
there.
A really, you can't tell unless you get close up. But it's got like some beautiful details, a little Bible on the top.
It's the Book of Life. That's what's on there. The Book of Life.
The Book of Life.
Okay. You can't see anything now because of the way the sun's hitting. So if I look bad, I apologize.
We're just going to assume it's okay.
No, it's going to be fine. So that World War I veteran is Private Bert E. Russell, and actually, he didn't live here. Look at how cute.
He's a handsome man.
He's dapper.
Dapper. That's a good word.
That was the word.
Dapper.
And you guys can see, I actually put my notes on here too. So he was the youngest of 11. Okay.
Bless his mother.
Yes. And actually, she died not too many years after him. Or his birth, excuse me, his birth. After 11.
Okay.
So, his father's actually buried here. His mother's not, but he's not buried next to his father, which is weird.
I was wondering if there's not room.
Maybe
that was it.
But three of his siblings, or a few of his siblings, are actually buried at Noonday Cemetery, which we've not done yet. So I'm wondering if maybe since their dad was here, they just buried him here, even though he didn't live here. But he died he enlisted on June 30th, 1918. So really close to the end of the war, because he was 37. He was a little bit older, but he wasn't married. And then he died from his wounds on November 1st, 1918, overseas. Now, I did find out that he wasn't actually interred here until 1921, and the stone was not put in until 1936, and the stone is Georgia marble. It's from Tate, so
Okay.
it is local. But again, I'm going to try and get over here or get permission to clean that. This cemetery is very interesting in that it's not, I've seen worse when it comes to needing to clean, but it really is, some of them just need a little scrub, but some of them need like a scrub.
Yeah.
It runs the gamut of these look great, these look all right, these look like they need a little help, and then there's some that are like, whew, definitely got to get to.
And we made mention of, they're not tree covered. I mean, it's really cleared out. There's not anything growing in the middle. Like, there's no sap or any of that.
So we were back there with the Brumbies. I mean, legitimately, the whole middle is sunshiny.
It's sunshiny, it's open, it's beautiful.
So we've got all of those, and then I wanted to talk about him, and then I want to show you guys 2 different stones. We're going to kind of walk back, but it's the same. Which one?
Are we going to talk about the lady?
Oh, yeah, I should mention the lady.
I think that's such a good story. It's the mother.
So that is Mary Garish Griffith. Try to say that one 10 times fast. And she actually died here in 1914 while visiting some of her children, 2 of her daughters, one of whom was Malchiah Russell. I just mentioned Russell, didn't I? And that was actually her brother-in-law who's buried here. Her husband was his older brother, and they're buried at Noonday.
And they're buried right next to each other, which is kind of a nice familial
But it's still,
connection.
it kind of boggles my mind because there are many times where people die in one place and then they're buried back in their home place. They're brought back.
Right.
I don't know why it wasn't here. Or buried where the children were going to be. Or,
I know. Why was she buried here when she was visiting, but she's not buried where the children were eventually buried?
well,
Or if they planned to be buried here,
yeah,
but something happened and then they
Maybe.
decided to go over to Noonday?
I don't
I don't know.
Well, like the other part that's interesting is, remember I said there were, she had 6 children, but one of her daughters ends up dying the same way, visiting one of the daughter's children, and wasn't buried by her home place. I'm like, that's kind of creepy. It's like life repeating itself in the familial way that happened. But all right, I'm going to show you guys 2 stones for the Woodmen of the World, 2 different styles, just because they're cool.
They're just really neat.
All right, let's walk. Hopefully I won't break you guys this time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot where the first one was. Is it the one straight ahead? Is this one?
Yes, I think it's this one.
Is it this one? Okay, good.
This Dawson.
Yes, it is. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I remembered. Oh,
Yeah.
well, you'll see it
It's
in
right
a minute.
here. It's really pretty.
There it is. Woodmen of the World. And I've talked about them before, but it was an insurance organization. I'm scooting back so they can see all of it. With the urn at
Because
the
it's a
top.
tall, beautiful. I mean, it's just a beautifully done, but it's tall.
Yeah, so you could.
Because I can stand next to it.
You paid into it.
I mean, it's a tall stone.
It's a taller one.
I'm 5'4" or 5'3". Yes.
Yeah, be generous. You're 5'4". I'm not much. I'm about the same. But then this one is more of the style that people see, which is the cut log style.
Which it's beautiful all the way around.
It's the whole way.
Carved it all the way around to look like a timber.
And I love the one behind it too with the 2 columns.
Yes.
And then the obelisk is a few different
I mean, and
people.
you can see, like, again, it's a tall piece.
So,
a tall stone.
as I was alluding to, but I didn't finish the statement because that's how I roll. Woodmen of the World was an insurance company that you could pay in for life insurance, and it included helping pay for burial and funeral stuff if you needed it. But this is the woodcut one is John G. York, so that's why he's here, is because, as we said, Yorks were one. His wife is right next to him, Esther M. Sessions, because she married again to Richard Sessions. Brave woman to be buried between both husbands.
I mean, she's buried between both husbands. That's
it's bravery.
It's not a usual choice. You usually kind of pick the first husband to be buried next to or the second husband to be buried next to. You're usually sandwiched in between them.
And I'm wondering if this is the reason why. She and John York, Nellie, I'm going to call her Nellie. Nellie and John only had one child who died as an infant. And she did not have any children with Richard. So I'm wondering if they had purchased a bigger plot.
Expecting to have descendants and not having it. That makes sense. And that's also terribly sad.
All right, so we're going to finish up. I don't have the story for this one, but Anna and I are just in love with this stone.
Yes.
So much.
This is an interesting cemetery in that there's so many varying styles, heights, colors, detail work, fonts, lettering, and then the ages of the various stones, because this is still an active cemetery. People are being actively buried here.
There are, I didn't mention the Bryans, but I will really quickly. George Bryan, who was warden of the prison farm in the 50s, is buried here. His descendants are here as well, including Rex Chilton, which people might know him. And I will have to check my book, but I do believe my book of the first 100 years, my copy was actually Sarah Bryan Chilton's copy, but we'll double check that. So I didn't look when we started to see if it was hers, but we'll check that in just a second. So we're going to go over to the one that we really love, and I'll grab my book so we can check. Okay, so we're getting towards the end. Yeah. And we did double check my copy. My copy actually was to Steve Chilton, who I have met, from his Love You, Mama and Dad. That would be Rex and Sarah Chilton, who are buried over here. And she was a Bryan. That was the word I was looking for. But yes, this is their copy. So I'm using a Bryan Chilton family copy of First 100 Years, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's a nice tie-in to...
If you'll hold that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Anna and I have shown you a bunch of different stones. We talked about a bunch of different people, a lot of them relating to, obviously, the family ties here in this burying ground, back and also to Marietta. But this one stone, it's simple but beautiful.
It is.
And the work on it, if you're going to come here and see this, please come and see this stone, because whatever I'm going to film is not going to do it justice. Just because of that would be relief work, right, on this stone? Because it's coming out. It's not engraved.
Yeah, it's not engraved. It's raised.
So I think you guys can see it, but we're going to go up closer.
And I think what gives it the extra is the stone is not white.
No, it's got like a pinkish.
It's got a pinkish undertone. And it's not pink from the clay, the Georgia clay.
It is at the bottom.
It is at the bottom. You can see the difference. But you can just see that it's just a beautiful stone that they've chosen. And then
it's on their footstones as well. But she...
Because that's her pine.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the...
But it's Joe O. Allen and then Maddie Lee York Allen. So she's a York. That's how they get to be buried here. But yeah, it's a little bit warm in the sun today.
It is a little bit. The iPad thought it was a little bit warm.
Oh, the iPad did not like it.
Did not like it.
So yeah, if you do come out here in the summer, have a hat, have water, because again, we did hit the shade behind us, but it does go away.
It's surrounded by woods, but there isn't any shade in the center. And I will say, I have enjoyed personally the magnolias that are here. They were gorgeous.
So you have there's one straight back.
1, 2, 3.
Another one. Well, 4.
That
one is not doing well. And that's the one by my car is Anna's new climbing tree. So Anna's not going to come and visit me. She's just going to come visit the climbing tree, even though I live right
I love magnolia trees. I don't know if anybody else who maybe grew up in the South or grew up in Georgia around Atlanta who didn't enjoy climbing in a magnolia tree. They have those beautiful thick branches that are just make it easy to step up and sit
this
in.
one does. The other two aren't as...
No, they've one of them looks like it would
be. There's actually 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Yeah, there's 5.
Yeah.
5.
So
there's none in the back, right? No.
I can tell that there's some actually along the perimeter. So they probably at one point had planted some around the perimeter.
Yeah.
And then maybe just through the years with housing and things around it, they died out. I mean,
was to say, I think one years ago
fell over,
snapped or whatever.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's a beautiful burying ground. Very easy to walk. Very, very lovely to. And again, it's at
well kept.
It's at Shallowford and like Maybreeze Road. Nicholson, as I said, is next to us, and then McCluskey is across the street and up the road. But yeah, this was a great one. Thank you, Anna, for coming.
No, thank you for having me.
But we will be back next time with
more stories of people.
I don't know if we'll be in a cemetery though, but we'll be somewhere.
Yeah.
If not, you can just visit us at the museum and I'll just throw out random stories. I mean, I'm good with
We've
that.
always got stories to tell.
And for anybody who was kind enough to give us stars, because I know somebody did, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Bye.